In this video, we'll discuss the cash savings requirements and how to calculate how this can be included towards the UK spouse and partner visa financial requirement. As an OISC-regulated UK immigration law firm that has helped more than 4,000 partners with their UK partner visa applications, we're very well placed to discuss this. This video will be relevant for applications where the sponsor does not receive one of these permitted benefits. As we discuss in our detailed UK spouse visa requirements video, if the sponsor does receive one of these benefits, the adequate maintenance test applies, which is a much lower standard that must instead be met. If the sponsor does receive one of these, we have a detailed step-by-step guide for the adequate maintenance tests on our website, www.migrate.org.uk. There are three different types of cash savings applications. One, where cash savings have been held for at least 6 months when the application is submitted. Two, where cash savings have been held for fewer than 6 months when the application is submitted, but are the proceeds of a sale of property that took place within the 6 months before submitting the application. And three, where cash savings have been held for fewer than 6 months when the application is submitted, but there has been a liquidation or transfer of investments, stocks, shares, bonds, or trust funds within the 6 months before submitting the application. This video will discuss each of these different types of cash savings applications. Let's first discuss the cash savings requirements that are relevant to all cash savings applications. In all cases, the cash savings must be held in either the applicant's personal account, the sponsor's personal account, or the applicant and sponsor's joint account. So yes, applicants can include their cash savings toward the financial requirement for all applications. The immigration rules, however, do not state that the cash savings can be in the applicant or sponsor's account, which is a joint account with someone other than the applicant or sponsor. So for example, if the account that holds the cash savings is in the name of the sponsors and the sponsor's mother jointly, this does not technically satisfy the immigration rules. The cash savings does not need to be held in British pounds. Rather, the cash funds will be converted using the closing spot exchange rate found on oanda.com on the date that the application is submitted. This is the case unless 1. You're relying on Iranian rials, which will be converted into pound sterling using the monthly FCDO consular exchange rate applicable on the date of application, or 2. You're relying on a currency which does not appear on oanda.com, which is currently only Syrian pounds, which will be converted using the monthly FCDO consular exchange rate on the date of application. The cash savings can be held in a bank or savings account that is a current, deposit or investment account. And this is worth noting because with other sources of income, such as employment income, you are specifically required to provide personal bank accounts, not savings accounts. The cash savings must be immediately withdrawable, with or without penalty. And the implication of this is that if, when the application is submitted, the funds are in the form of a fixed deposit account where the funds cannot be accessed immediately, the fixed deposit account's funds will not be includable towards the financial requirement. The source of the cash savings must be legal, and whilst you need to declare the source of the cash savings, it is generally the case that the Home Office will take your word for it. They will not conduct forensic accounting regarding the cash savings source. The account the funds are held with must be a financial institution regulated by the appropriate regulatory body for the country in which the institution is operating. In the UK, this is the Financial Conduct Authority, otherwise known as the FCA, or the Prudential Regulation Authority, otherwise known as the PRA. The Home Office doesn't list the relevant bodies for the other countries, so if you're relying on an overseas account, it will be your responsibility to ensure that the relevant body is an appropriate regulatory body. And finally, in all instances, you'll be required to provide regular bank or savings statements. Again, understandably, the Home Office does not elaborate on what a regular statement looks like, but in most situations, this should be rather obvious. The statement will need to identify the account holder or account holders and should have an identifiable account number, should show the name of the financial institution and be complete, meaning that the statements will need to show the relevant information required to establish whether the immigration rules are met. And on this point, please do not redact your statements. So, how does the Home Office calculate the amount of cash savings you can include towards the financial requirement? We will start with the standard cash savings application where the cash savings will have been held for 6 months when the application is submitted. Step 1 involves identifying the lowest total amount of includable cash savings held at one point in time in the 6 months before submitting the application. If you're relying on cash savings held in only one account, this will be rather simple as you will just need to identify the lowest figure as seen in the statements. If, however, you're relying on cash savings held over numerous accounts, if it's not immediately clear after scanning through the statements that the financial requirement is met, we would normally recommend creating an Excel sheet like the one here, which makes it clear what the relevant figure is. Not only will this make the Home Office caseworker's job easier, which is certainly something that you want to do, but this also helps you ensure that you satisfy the financial requirement. Whilst creating such an Excel sheet which covers each day in the 6 months before submitting the application can seem like an incredibly mundane task, many banks allow you to download statements in Excel format, which will save you a lot of time comparing to manually inputting the figures. The second step will require you to minus the figure in step 1 by £16,000. The implication of this is that if you have cash savings of £16,000 or less, your cash savings will not help you satisfy the minimum income threshold. The final step, step 3, will then require you to divide this number by 2.5, assuming you're applying for a spouse or partner visa and not indefinite leave to remain, where this step is not relevant. The figure that you reach here will be the cash savings gross annual income equivalent figure that can be included towards the financial requirement. To give you an idea as to the cash savings required to satisfy the financial requirement alone, we can look at this table here. The second type of cash savings application is where cash savings have been held for fewer than 6 months when the application is submitted, but are the proceeds of a sale of property within the 6 months before submitting the application. The relevant calculation here is not the lowest amount of cash savings held in the 6 months before submitting the application. Rather, the 6-month period will be reduced by the amount of time that passed between the start of the 6-month period and the deposit of the proceeds of the property sale. So, for example, if the deposit of the proceeds of the property sale was received 2 months before submitting the application, to rely on the cash savings from the sale of property, you will only be required to provide personal bank statements or savings statements that cover the 2 months before submitting the application. If ownership of the property was shared with a third party, i.e. someone other than the applicant and/or sponsor, only the proceeds of the sale of the share of the property owned by the applicant, sponsor, or both jointly can be counted. The third type of cash savings application is where cash savings have been held for fewer than 6 months when the application is submitted, but there has been a liquidation or transfer of investments, stocks, shares, bonds, or trust funds within the 6 months before submitting the application. Here, the relevant calculation is not made using the lowest amount of cash savings held in the 6 months before submitting the application. Rather, just like where there's been a sale of the property, the standard 6-month period will be reduced by the amount of time between the start of the 6-month period and the transfer or liquidation into cash. So, for example, if a stock portfolio, which was held for longer than 6 months before submitting the application, was sold 1 month before submitting the application, to rely on the cash savings from the stock portfolio, you will only technically be required to provide personal bank or savings statements that cover the 1 month before submitting the application. Combining cash savings with other sources of income. Cash savings can be combined with employment income under Category A and Part 1 of the 2-part Category B test, and other non-employment income under Category C, and pension income under Category E. Cash savings cannot be combined with specified limited company income under Category F or G, or self-employment income as a sole trader, partner, or franchise under Category F or G. The financial requirement is one of the many mandatory requirements that you must meet when you apply for a UK spouse or partner visa. For a detailed account of all of the spouse visa requirements, you can watch our incredibly in-depth UK spouse visa requirements video by clicking the video here. Also, if you found this video helpful, feel free to let us know in the YouTube comments by liking the video and by subscribing.